Fat Tater knows there ain't no pot that's too big. Fat Tater knows ain't no such thing as a kitchen that's too small. So come on up into the room and grab yourself a big old spoon. Come on, wild Fat Tater. Come on now, Fat Tater. Come on, wild Fat Tater cooks it all.
Hi, and welcome to the first official video, I guess, of Fat Tater Cooks It All. Today we are going to start off our first official video with a staple in the South, gravy biscuits. Or some people would call them sausage gravy and biscuits, or biscuits and gravy. There's about 100 different ways to make them and about 100 different ways to call them. First things first, you need to get yourself something that is not this. This is not a biscuit. You need to be very careful. This can be deceiving. It says biscuits. These are not biscuits. Biscuits are made with love. These are made with machinery. In all seriousness, canned biscuits do have their place in this world. It is not under sausage gravy or around sausage gravy or on the breakfast plate. These make absolutely great Chinese donuts that you get at the Chinese buffet. They make great monkey bread, pull-apart bread. They have different names for it. And we can go through some of those in future episodes. But you can make absolutely outstanding biscuits with ease. And for pennies on the dollar. That thing costs 3 times what it take me to make a whole pan of biscuits. And we're getting ready to show you exactly that right now. And remember, there's only one way to be Southern. If you move to the South, welcome. We love you. We're glad you're here. But just because a cat has kittens in the oven, don't make them biscuits. Buttermilk, whole cultured buttermilk, has the shelf life of forever. It's going to be, after the atomic bomb, is going to be roaches and buttermilk. Buy it, leave it in your refrigerator forever. It's not going to go bad. It has a date on it, maybe 26, 5. Yeah, it's not going to go bad.
Yeah, Fat Tater, just to cover yourself, you might want to add something onto that.
Oh, I've just spoken with my legal counsel. You need to abide by the date on your buttermilk because you could die because those dates are important. But it'll never go bad. Some people cook their biscuits on 450, some people cook them on 400. If you cook them less than 400, you probably should use canned biscuits. 425, do that first. By the time you get done making your biscuits, you'll be ready for action. Hi. We interrupt your regularly scheduled program. I realize that I'm not dressed in the same clothes. Continuity, please, don't come for me. Part of the video got corrupted. And part of the video that told you how much of what to put into where. So I felt like that it was important for me to come back and reshoot said video. And I'm not dressed for camera. I'm dressed for eating. I'm hungry, so we're making biscuits. I'm gonna give 2 scoops of my flour. This is self-rising flour. How do I know it's self-rising flour? Because it says on the bucket, self-rising flour. 2 scoops, which is gonna equal about 2 cups. Two cups. And then a little bit for the board. It's probably a little more than 2 cups, but I'm kind of winging it. 2 cups of flour is going to feed a pretty good amount of people. Probably going to make, I don't know, 20, 30 biscuits, 25 biscuits of my little biscuits. You'll see, hopefully, in a minute. Half a stick of butter. I use frozen butter and grate it. That way you don't have to go through the whole breaking up process and all that stuff. half a stick of butter grated. It goes pretty quick. It's pretty easy. I think it makes it easier. I'm gonna talk, but you're probably never gonna hear this because they're gonna cut it out because this is boring watching me grate butter. Half a stick of butter, roughly-ish. You like buttery biscuits? Put a little more butter. You like less buttery biscuits? Put a little less butter. I'm gonna take a quarter stick of butter and I'm gonna put it in a bowl and set it over here on my warming spot. Now you have a half a stick of butter, 2 cups of flour, and about that much salt. It's probably a half a teaspoon. You can make it a little more, a little less, but I would not recommend making biscuits without the salt. The self-rising flour already has the baking soda, baking powder, and all that stuff in it. It has a little bit of salt in it also, but I like them a little more salty. I like to use a spoon. Gonna stir that up, your salt and your butter. Buttermilk, whole cultured buttermilk. Some people use half buttermilk, half water. Some people use milk. Some people use water. Some people use whatever they want to use. Use whole cultured buttermilk. That's probably, I don't know, 3/4 of a cup. Put a little bit in there. Go a little at a time. See how it's clumpy and there's still lots of dry flour? Add a little bit more. When you get to this point though, you're gonna want to go like tablespoons at a time because it'll get real wet real quick. Still clumpy, still a little bit of dry flour, but we're getting real close. So I'm probably gonna need maybe a tablespoon, a little bit more. And that's probably gonna make it happen. We return you now to your regularly scheduled program. You got a little bit sticking to the bowl. That's the way I like mine. A little wetter is okay. It just makes the biscuits harder to handle as you're putting them on the tray. Wetter dough, I think, makes for a fluffier biscuit. However, they're a little cumbersome to pick up because they want to droop and fall apart on you. But this is a good consistency here, where it's taken all the flour and it still has a very little bit. It still wants to stick to the bowl a little bit, but not a whole lot. Now, you're gonna take your flour, spread it out on your board, and give her the old dump. Dump her like a prom date. See, and scrape your bowl. That's half a biscuit. I remember when I was a kid, my grandma would knead the dough with her hands. And I remember her doing this. And she would swipe off all her fingers to get the dough off. She would wring off her fingers with the dough. And then she would wipe that up and flop it on the top of the dough. I don't know why I remember that as a kid, but that's what I remember my grandma doing. Now you want to mash it out. There's no rolling pins. There's none of this crazy tech stuff that you have to make biscuits. You just pat it out. You want to see, this is a big soup spoon, a tablespoon, but we're, you know, maybe almost half as much, because biscuits they do rise, but if you start out with a little cookie, you're going to end up with little cookies. Start out with a fluffy biscuit, you'll end up with a fluffy biscuit. My little cookie cutter. I learned how to make biscuits with a little cookie cutter. Everybody asks me, why do you have such little bitty biscuits? Well, because when I first learned how to make biscuits, I had a little cookie cutter, and, or yes, a biscuit cutter. And I learned how to make little bitty baby biscuits, and my little bitty baby biscuits tasted good. So I keep making little bitty baby biscuits. If you want big fat cat head biscuits, make big fat cat head biscuits. I like little bitty baby ones. They fit a tomato really well. Get a little bit of flour on your cutter, straight down. This is my biscuit pan. There are many like it, but this one is mine. I love this biscuit pan. It's old and crappy and looks horrible, but it's what I use. And I use, we can't say the name, but this chick If I was gonna, this chick's name's Pamela. She's great, I like her. And she uses baking made with flour. So it's made with flour, but it smells like you could eat it. But Pamela is my friend. My grandma would say use lard and grease the baking sheet with lard. I like the spray, but you can use the lard, it's great. Straight down and straight up. Put your biscuit together. Make sure they're touching. Now some people say never twist your biscuits. They come out a lot easier if you twist them, but they say a twisted biscuit won't rise. I think that's a load of crap. Because, like I said in our pilot, this is not rocket surgery. We're making biscuits. If you twist it, you twist it. If you don't, you don't. If they come out great, eat them. If they don't, eat them. So after your first cut, you try to cut them as close together as you can so you don't have a lot of waste, but you're gonna have some waste. You just smush it together with a little flour on your fingers so you don't end up with big sausage fingers. Smush it together, and what I like to do is I'll roll it and squish it and roll it. That way I squish it together and I come out with a log that's kind of the width of my biscuits. That way it creates less waste for the next roll out. You're gonna see that your second row of biscuits is a little smoother on the top. Not that big a deal, but the more you work the dough, the tougher it'll get. Your third time, what I like to do is I just roll it in my hand, and there's always the big giant biscuit. I had a buddy of mine that he always wanted the big biscuit, because there's always, the last biscuit is always a big giant biscuit. And I just kind of make it in the shape of a biscuit and put it on the pan. So I use my biscuit cutter to scrape the board down, because you got little bits on your board. Now, if you want to, you can use this flour to make your gravy. But the Great Depression was a long time ago, and we can afford 37 cents worth of clean flour. Okay, after you get your biscuits cut and you got them on your pan, you just stick them in the oven. Stick them right in the middle and let them marinate. I start off with high heat. If I'm not using our homemade sausage, we make sausage here on the farm, whole hog sausage, from the snooter to the tooter. We put it all in there. Great sausage. However, if I'm going to use store-bought sausage, I prefer Swaggerty's. I'm not sponsored by Swaggerty's unless they wanted to send me a bunch of free sausage. Then I'd be happy to be sponsored by Swaggerty's. But I use Swaggerty's sausage because it's easy. It keeps forever in the freezer, and they're already cut. I just pile the little pucks around till I run out of room. Squeeze one more in there, maybe, yeah. But we're gonna squish all this up so it doesn't have to be pretty. Okay, now is when you're gonna come down, cut your fire back. This is medium low. I never look at this. I just look at my fire whenever I have little yellow tips, but it's my stove, the way my stove works. Your stove might work a little different, but just put it where you're getting a significant amount of heat. You want a significant amount of heat, but you don't want smoke. So just wherever your stove says to do that, do that. And I just, when I feel them start getting thawed out, then I take to the streets, baby. Some people like chunky sausage gravy. I like mine a little more broken up. A little finer consistency, I guess you would say. Look, funny story. When my wife and I were dating, my nieces came from my hometown to stay the week with us. And my wife, my now wife, who was my girlfriend then, asked my nieces what did they want for breakfast. And one of my nieces said they like sausage, gravy, and biscuits. And my wife says, well, I don't have any gravy. And my niece looked at her and said, I'm sorry? And she said, my wife said, I don't have any gravy. God bless her. She grew up in the South, but she grew up in a cul-de-sac, and she didn't, her family was not like country cooks type people. She said, well, we had to go to the store and buy a jar of gravy. And my niece was like, you just make the gravy. I don't understand what you mean buying gravy. My wife did not understand what you meant by making the gravy. Cut to the end of the story. I was 30 years old when my wife told me this story. I was 30 years old when I learned you could buy gravy in the store. I had never heard of buying gravy, but I've never eaten it. It might be good, I don't know. I've never eaten it, but I can make gravy for a nickel. Now, this sausage doesn't make a whole lot of grease, and you're gonna need more grease. This is not health food. This is great, but it's not health food. So you get bacon up, or what people who, you can buy bacon grease. They call it bacon up. Never heard of it. We have a jug of bacon grease. If you need to buy bacon grease, my thought is you don't need enough bacon. I'm gonna put probably 2 tablespoons of bacon grease in there because I'm gonna make a fair amount of gravy. Yeah, you don't need to buy, I mean, I hope Bacon Up, I hope the company does well, and I hope they make millions of dollars, but I'm not buying bacon grease. Now, once you get to this stage, your sausage is already cooked. You just put extra grease in there to make your gravy. It goes fairly quick at this point. You just want to sprinkle. You want about 1 part grease and 1 part flour. This is just regular all-purpose flour, nothing fancy, no self-rising. Don't waste your self-rising on this because it doesn't need to rise. So you're going to mix that around. Get all the flour covered with the grease, and you want to cook the flour a little bit. Don't make gravy with flour that has not been cooked. Now all that flour has been cooked a little bit already because the grease was hot. But your flour, if you don't cook your flour a little bit, this is what's called a roux. If you don't cook your flour a little bit, you're going to get kind of a bland, well, it tastes like flour. If you cook your flour a little bit, it takes that flat, floury taste out of it. So at this point, I'm going to put pepper. And when I say put pepper, biscuits and gravy, you see that pepper? That's probably, I don't know, this thing comes out quick. That's probably a ½ tablespoon of pepper, I'm guessing. It's a considerable amount of pepper. In my opinion, biscuits and gravy, or sausage gravy, needs lots of pepper. And you're going to want to give it maybe half a teaspoon of salt. Enough salt to say there's salt to taste the salt, but not enough to make it salty. Now, you see this. The thing about flour, the thing about a roux, and if you've ever cooked any kind of Cajun food where they use a real dark chocolatey roux, the more you cook the flour, the less thickening agent it'll have. Raw flour makes things very thick with less flour. The longer you cook it, the less thickening agent properties, I guess, it takes on. So if you get a darker roux, you get more flavor. The more flavor you get out of cooking your flour, the less thickening agent it becomes. So there's kind of a happy medium. If you like lighter colored gravy, you're going to use less flour. If you like darker colored gravy, you're going to use more flour because it doesn't have the thickening properties that lighter colored flour would have. Okay, now you need to add your milk. My mom uses half milk and half water. I use all milk. If your wife loves you, it's a red top on the milk. My wife does not love me, we have to have 2% milk. If my wife loved me, we'd have a red top and have whole milk. Whole milk is better, but we don't have that. Some people say you pour a little bit of milk in and you start. I just let her eat. Some people say put a little bit of milk in, stir it up, let it start thickening, and then add some more milk. And that's good because if you're new to making gravy, you can you can do it that way because you don't get runny gravy. You don't over water your flour. But I know that this is probably going to end up a little thicker than I want. And that is that's almost as a southern debate as barbecue. How thick should gravy be? I got a buddy of mine, he wants to eat it, he wants to be able to cut it with a knife. And I got some people that want it real soupy. I'm kind of in between. I like thick gravy, but I don't want to have to chew it. So what you're gonna do is you're just gonna continually stir this now. You're gonna stir this often. The more you stir it, the more agitated the flour is gonna get, the less likely it is gonna be to burn. But at this stage, you're very unlikely to burn anyway because you've got so much liquid in here. But when it starts thickening up, it'll burn if you quit stirring it. This is not a Cajun roux. You don't have to sit there and constantly stir it. However, you don't want to leave it for long. And then you take your spoon and you wash all that roux off your spoon. Okay, we're starting to thicken now. And I think I'm still going to end up a little too thick. I might need a little bit more milk. But once this starts bubbling, once it starts a rolling boil for just a little bit, you're probably as thick as it's going to be. The flour is going to take on as much milk as it can, and that's going to be as thick as it gets. And I might have hit this pretty close to where I wanted it to start with. But I've made many pans of gravy. Also, if you're making your gravy a little ahead of time, if you're not going to eat breakfast or brunch or dinner, breakfast for dinner, whatever. If you're not going to eat for, a little while, it'll stay warm, but you want to make it a little thinner than normal because as it sits, it's going to thicken up. And this might be a little tighter than I want it, so I'm going to add just a little bit of milk. But your gravy thickness is up to you. And I just added maybe, a quarter cup, just to kind of loosen it up a little bit. And the milk doesn't need to cook. So once you incorporate it, it's not going to get a lot thicker. It may get a little thicker as it warms up, as the milk starts to boil off. But in my opinion, this is about the right consistency.
Wow.
So if you have a pan that has kind of a sharp curve in the bottom, stick your spoon down in the corner and scrape that out, because your flour will get stuck down in there and you'll have burnt spots. I have also once you get the consistency that you want, turn the fire off. You don't need any more fire once you get to the consistency that you want. Oh, baby. Rise and shine. Arise and delight in the bounty the Lord has given us. These might be a little darker than some people. My mama wants them really light. I like them dark. I like a little crunch on my biscuit. And then some people want the inside biscuits. Me and my wife, we want the outside biscuits. My mom wants the inside biscuits because there's no crunchy crust on the outside. I like this crunchy crust on the outside of the biscuit. Is one of my favorite parts. But my mama, she wants it all soft all the way around, which is fine, whatever you like. But I brush these babies with this little bit of butter, and that's just the proverbial icing on the cake. And if you know who Justin Wilson is, you know right now is the perfect time to say, ooh, boy.
This is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
We're ready to plate. And there's something very important about plating a biscuit, in my opinion. If you take a biscuit and you put it on a plate and then you pour gravy on top of that, go back to California or to New York where you came from, because that's not how it's done. You need to open your biscuits. Some people say don't cut your biscuits. Some people say always cut your biscuits. Some people say put gravy on top of a whole biscuit. That's not how it's done. I break them open just because it's easier. You want to cut your biscuit, cut your biscuit. But these are little bitty biscuits, so this is 4 biscuits. And 4 biscuits is probably equivalent to 2 normal size biscuits. So don't say, golly, fatty, what are you eating? They're about half the size of a normal biscuit. Take your biscuits and you get your gravy. And the final pièce de la résistance. I don't know if that's how you say it, but I think that's how you say it. But the final piece of the resistance, if you're really from the South, you really know it's tomato time. True Southerners will know that gravy biscuits are eaten with sliced tomatoes. I don't personally prefer it. My mama don't want gravy biscuits without tomatoes. My preacher, he loves it, loves it, loves it. But I'm gonna serve it today because that's as Southern as it gets. And this is a homegrown tomato, they ugly. The uglier the tomato is, the better it's gonna taste. And homegrown tomatoes, they're not gonna be beautiful like the ones you get in the grocery store that came out of a hothouse and wherever. Sometimes they got little ugly spots in them. But quit being a sissy. Your grandma didn't worry about that. Take that little ugly spot, look inside. It's beautiful. However, I did have a slice of that tomato. And that's the first slice of a homegrown tomato I've had since last year. So I gotta get me another slice and just eat some tomato. I hope you enjoy, I hope you try it. I hope you try to cook biscuits and gravy because it's a Southern staple and it is super duper easy to make and it's so cheap and you can feed a lot of people for not a lot of money. This may be the best tomato I've ever had in my whole life. Bonus footage. Getting ready to get real Southern here. Oh, we about to get Appalachian up in here. That's gooder than snuff on a sweet tater.